Roller coasters are one of the most thrilling ways to seek entertainment. They can alter your perspective of reality, and the things that some of these massive machines can do are just simply incredible. Now, I've ridden quite a few of these coasters in my lifetime, and I've been able to operate some that are on this list. I've also been to several fantastic parks that are home to these rides over the years, including Kennywood, Cedar Point, Kings Island, and so many more. The list goes on and on. So today, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 favorite coasters of all time. Before we start, however, I'd like to shout out my good friend Daredevil Coaster Riders, who gave me the idea of making this video. He makes a lot of interesting coaster vids as well, so go check him out. There will be a link to his channel in the description. So without further ado, let's begin. Number 10. Skyrocket, located at Kennywood Park in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Starting off with a coaster from my home park is Skyrocket. Standing at 95 feet tall with a top speed of 50 miles per hour, Skyrocket features 3 inversions and 1 impressive launch. This launch takes you 0 to 50 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. The entire ride itself may only last about a minute, but it is sure to be one of the best 1-minute rides you'll ever experience. Fun fact, Skyrocket's model is called a Skyrocket 1 model, which is where the name comes from. While this may not seem exactly creative, Premier Rides, which are the manufacturers of Skyrocket, have only ever built one Skyrocket 1 model. Skyrocket 2 models do exist in other parts of the world, but Kennywood Skyrocket is one of a kind. Number 9. Thunderbolt, also located at Kennywood Park in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thunderbolt is the roller coaster that I mainly operate and personally believe to be the most underrated wooden roller coaster I've ever ridden. The T-Bolt's history is quite unique, too. It originally opened as the Pippin in 1924, but was remodeled in 1968. Some of the original features were removed, but some are still standing to this day, so technically, Thunderbolt is almost 100 years old. Anyone who has ridden T-Bolt knows that there is a strict no single rider policy, and it's for a good reason. I've taken a few rides by myself without someone sitting next to me, and despite it making the experience 10 times better, it's easy to see how smaller riders may not fare so well without someone by their side. Almost every seat on the T-Bolt gives its own unique ride experience, but my personal favorite spot is in the back. You can get some serious airtime here since all you're wearing is a seatbelt and a lap bar, and it is amazing. Some may call it bias for me, someone who operates the ride, to put Thunderbolt on a list like this, but what can I say? It was still a great ride before I started working for Kennywood. In fact, Thunderbolt was the roller coaster that made me decide to become an enthusiast, so it will always hold a special place in my heart. When I was about 8 or 9, I went on a field trip with my summer camp to Kennywood. The counselors encouraged me to ride the Thunderbolt, but I put up a fight as they took me closer and closer to the station. Once I was buckled in, the ride began, and I will admit, I screamed the whole way. After we left the ride, I was still fighting. Not because I was scared, but because the employees wouldn't let me ride it 2 times in a row. It just comes full circle, doesn't it? Number 8. Fahrenheit, located at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I've only ever visited Hershey Park once, and if I could pick the best memory from that visit, it would be my experience with Fahrenheit. When it opened in 2008, Fahrenheit had the steepest drop of any other coaster in the world, 97 degrees. It also features 6 inversions and a vertical lift hill. That basically means when you're going up the lift hill, you're sitting face up looking directly to the heavens. After the 121-foot ascent, you're dropped right back down, but steeper, and get thrown into what some people call a spaghetti bowl of track. I remember how when I rode Fahrenheit, the ride operator will make some kind of buzzing sound effect into the microphone whenever he went through one of the inversions. I didn't know that it wasn't a part of the ride, but it was still pretty comedic. Number 7. Millennium Force, located at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Now begins the long chain of Cedar Point roller coasters. Starting the trend is Millennium Force. I really had to rack my brain in order to put this at a fitting place, because Cedar Point is home to some of the best roller coasters in the world, and a lot of them made it onto this list. Putting it at spot number 7 seemed a bit harsh for this ride, but I ultimately deemed it fitting because Cedar Point still has several other coasters that could easily top it. Millennium Force opened in the year 2000 as the tallest and fastest coaster in the world. It stands at 310 feet tall and reaches a top speed of 93 miles per hour. These records have since been shattered, but Millennium Force still remains one of the tallest and fastest coasters in the world today. Other than its height and speed, Millennium Force set several other noteworthy records. It was the first coaster to exceed a height of 300 feet, making it the world's first Giga coaster. It is also the third longest coaster in North America. It has won first place for the Golden Ticket Awards 10 times and has never ranked lower than second since its opening. With all of these accomplishments, it's no surprise that Millennium Force is argued as the best coaster ever built. Number 6. Maverick, also located at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. The definition of a Maverick is an unbranded calf or yearling. In other words, a wild horse or cow. There's a reason why Maverick is named after a wild horse, because it sure makes you feel like you're riding one. This coaster tosses and turns you so much that you seriously feel like you're about to fly out of your seat. Of course, that's the case with most coasters, and it's all intentional. But of all the ones I've ever ridden, none can do it better than Maverick. One of its signature elements is its second launch. Halfway through the ride, you approach a tunnel and come to an almost dead stop. You crawl along the tracks for a few seconds, and then boom, you get launched right back into it. This second launch, even though I know it exists, always takes me by surprise. It's absolutely stunning to think that this ride is almost 13 years old, since it opened in mid-2007. Now going back to Maverick's name origins, the name also plays a part in Cedar Point's Frontier Town, which is a segment of the park that is set to look like the Wild West. Maverick fits this theming to a T, and so does just about everything else in the area. In the past, Maverick included an inversion known as a Heartline roll, and it was located after the first drop. This was removed though because guests complained that it was too forceful, and I'm kinda disappointed that I never got to experience it, because despite how forceful it was, the inversion was apparently a fan favorite among enthusiasts. Number 5. Top Thrill Dragster, also located at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Much like Millennium Force, Dragster also claimed the title for tallest and fastest roller coaster when it opened in 2003. Standing at a whopping 420 feet tall and reaching a top speed of 120 miles per hour, it's no surprise that this ride made me scream so much that I lost my voice the following day. Today, it is the second tallest and third fastest coaster, and, just like Millennium Force, Dragster also set new records that changed the coaster world. It was the first coaster to break the 400-foot mark. It was the world's first strata coaster, with King Ka and Six Flags Great Adventure being the only other one in existence. If I do go to Cedar Point again, I definitely plan on riding this again and more than once for the day. Number 4. Phantom's Revenge, located at Kennywood Park in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're headed back to my home park for a bit to talk about the Phantom's Revenge. Anyone who was alive in the 90s remember this as the Steel Phantom, another ride that set the record for fastest coaster in the world. Steel Phantom looked totally different than what you're seeing now. It featured 4 inversions and was painted black. However, guests complained about how forceful it was to go through these inversions at 80 miles an hour, so the ride eventually closed for good. However, a manufacturing company named Morgan came in and renovated the Phantom to the absolute airtime monster it is today. All 4 inversions were removed and multiple airtime hills were built. A key element of Phantom's Revenge is its second drop. This drop is much taller than its first at 228 feet, making it a hypercoaster, or a coaster with a drop taller than 200 feet. The restraints, a basic lap bar and seatbelt, also contribute to the wicked airtime you can get on this ride. The Phantom was my favorite coaster of all time before I visited Cedar Point, but it still ranks high on my list. Number 3. Gatekeeper, located at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. And now we're back in Ohio. I told you that we would be spending a lot of time here. Gatekeeper, also known as the Big Blue roller coaster at the front of the park, is hands down the smoothest and quietest roller coaster I've ever ridden. Even though it's nowhere near as intense as the other rides on this list, the reason Gatekeeper ranks so high is because of what it contains. As you may have noticed, the POV for this ride seems a bit off. You're sitting to the left of the track instead of above it. That's because Gatekeeper is a wing coaster. Riders sit on either side of the track, and your experience varies depending on where you sit. This means there's no floor below you, and you feel like you're flying like a bird. Gatekeeper used to hold the record for the world's tallest inversion, but that title was taken by another coaster that I will mention later. Gatekeeper also features its signature keyhole elements, which are inversions that go through a pair of 100-foot tall towers. These are meant to give you the feeling that you're about to crash and can really get your blood pumping. Since this ride is located at the front of the park and goes over the gate entrance, it's only proper to give Gatekeeper this majestic name. Number 2. Steel Vengeance, also located at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. This is Cedar Point's newest addition to the park and is probably the most popular. This used to be Mean Streak, a former record holder for the tallest wooden roller coaster in the world, but was converted into Steel Vengeance, making it 100 times better. I rode Mean Streak when I first visited Cedar Point, and I hated it. It was rough and gave me a killer headache. But then, a few years later, a huge renovation was made and Steel Vengeance was born. 10 world records were broken with Steel Vengeance's debut. It was the world's tallest, longest, and fastest hybrid roller coaster. Just like Maverick, Steel Vengeance is part of Cedar Point's Frontier Town, but the theming blows Mavericks out of the water. Steel Vengeance is the only coaster I've even ever heard of that has a backstory. Basically, the land Steel Vengeance sits on was home to some world-renowned gunslingers of the Old West, and a confrontation between them influenced Steel Vengeance to be built. Did I mention that this is also an airtime monster? The Phantom's Revenge may have a lot of airtime moments, but Steel Vengeance actually holds the record for most airtime on a roller coaster ever. With all of these accolades racked up, it's no wonder why people argue that Steel Vengeance is the best coaster of all time. When I first rode Steel Vengeance, I took this amazing picture when I was waiting in line. This picture, with a simple grayscale filter applied, is the best picture I've ever taken of the ride and truly captures the intensity it holds. Before I reveal my number 1 pick, I would like to take this time to acknowledge some honorable mentions. The following 5 coasters are great rides, don't get me wrong, but they just didn't quite make my list. Number 1. Steel Curtain, located at Kennywood Park in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Boy oh boy, is there a lot to unpack about how great Steel Curtain is. Where should I begin? The 3 records it broke? The theming? Or maybe my life-changing experience when I first rode it? Steel Curtain never fails to impress me with every ride. From its layout and design to its features, Steel Curtain is definitely a Cedar Point grade coaster in my book. Remember when I said that there was a coaster that claimed the spot of tallest inversion? Well, you're looking at it. Steel Curtain holds this record now, flipping you upside down at 197 feet in the air. That's insane to even think about.
But I'm not done yet!
This inversion is only one of 9 on Steel Curtain, making it the coaster with the most inversions in North America.
But I'm not done yet!
Steel Curtain sits at a max height of 220 feet. That's almost as tall as the second drop on the Phantom. This makes it the tallest coaster in Pennsylvania.
But I'm not done yet.
This ride is also the tallest looping coaster and is the first to partner with an official sports team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speaking of the Steelers, let's talk about this theming. Steel Curtain is the flagship of Kennywood's new Steeler Country, an area of the park that is dedicated to football and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The black and gold track and supports really make this ride stick out like a sore thumb, and the trains themselves include a little Easter egg about the Steelers. One train has the number 19 on the front, and the other has the number 36. Put these two numbers together and you have the year that the Steelers were founded, 1936. Steel Curtain also gets its name from the Steelers' impressive defensive line, also called the Steel Curtain, that played back in the 1970s. Building this amazing ride did require a sacrifice though. In Steel Curtain's spot sat the Log Jammer, a fan favorite among Pittsburghers. I loved the Log Jammer, but it unfortunately reached the end of its service life and was torn down. You can still see pieces of it and old track parts from the Steel Phantom in what I call the Kennywood Graveyard, which is located at the Diesel Driver's Ride in Thomastown. There you have it, my top 10 favorite coasters of all time. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below and let me know what your favorites are. Again, huge shout out to Daredevil Coaster Riders. There will be a link to his channel in the description below, as well as links to all the POV videos I used for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to subscribe, drop a comment, smash that like button. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.